Hi everyone, this is Colleen Aiken with Designs of Value Online Art School. Today we're going to talk about watercolors and watercolor pencils to be exact. This is the set of watercolor pencils that I have. It's Duent. It's 36 different colors. I've painted quite a few different projects with these. I'm just going to put them like this so you can see. I have some of the colors set out. And what I've done, and I'll show you how I do that, is take the brush, put the water in the palette, and brush the tip of the pencil. This is the project that we're going to paint. We're going to do just one flower. It'll be this one. And I'm going to do it in two different techniques so you can see two different styles of using the watercolor pencils and how that can be done. And then just have my watercolor paper here. I've got some projects here that I've used the watercolor pencils on, and I just wanted to show you how they look. Similar colors to what we're doing right now. It's a daylily. It's got the dark background, all the different stripes, so that one worked out really well. And then this one is some roses in a vase. It's just a partial vase, and then a full bloom, a partial bloom, and then a bud. And so there's many different ways that you can use watercolor pencils, and that's what I wanted to show you today, is how we can do that together. So let me set these aside so they don't fall over, cause a problem. Looking for my baby diaper. There it is. In case you don't know me, I use cloth baby diapers. To wipe things up if need be. So I'm going to show you how I grab the color and put it on my palette. We need in that flower probably a little bit of a darker blue. We can always add water to it if we need to lighten it. And that's always a nice way to go. Just gonna grab my brush. Oh, here it is right there, right in front of me, of course. Alright, so all I'm doing is wetting the brush that I use to mix colors. And I'm just getting it wet with clear water. And then I take the tip of the brush right across the tip of the watercolor. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty color. And just keep pulling on it until I get the amount. Now with this, if you have a large area, which I'm showing you in just a small budded area, so we don't need a ton, but I am going to add some water to that. There we go. Clean my brush out real well. And then I always keep my pencils, the ones that I'm using, right there so I know which ones I've used. Okay. So we're going to do this bud. We're going to have a highlight coming in from the upper left. It's got some pinks and blues. So we're going to do this just as if it's a normal painting. We're going to glaze. And this will be the first two petals. I'm going to just glaze this one first, just like we would normally with any painting. So we're going to glaze this nice, and this is just an inexpensive, for this demonstration, Canon watercolor paper. I probably picked it right up at Walmart, but it's great for practice and different things like that. So there, we've got our water on there. You can always tilt it to make sure you got it right where you want it. I actually do have a dry spot right there, so it's always good to do that. Okay. So I've got my water in, and I'm going to just refer back This one's darker towards the center. We're going to go with this color to begin with. And we're going to just drop it in like we normally do for any of our watercolors. You always want to, this is the center of the flower, so any striations, you always want to go towards that center. So that's the way they're going to grow, these petals. And I'm going to just soften that up right to the edge. And we're going to be a little darker here up against that other petal. It's actually on top of this petal, but underneath that one on the right. So, and again, I'm going to just sweep some of that color up. Now, while this is wet, I'm going to drop in. We're going to do this color is actually a mixture of a blue and this purple here. So we're going to add just a little bit more purple in. And I'm going to just, I have way too much paint on there. So all I did was tap my baby diaper. It just gives it a little bit more of a dark value right up against the center and this side of the petal. And let that disperse. Now I want to get a highlight on this upper left hand edge. So all I did was clean out my brush and make sure it's nice and dry. It has to be drier than the paint that's on there. Pull out that highlight. Okay. Now let's go on to the next. Well, we're gonna jump into this petal because I don't want to blend it and have it run. So let's add our water first. Nice glaze. Cover the entire petal. And I'm just following the picture photograph that I have as far as coloring and so forth. And I'm just going to look at the side of it and make sure it's got the water that I want on there. Had a little bit too much water on there, so I just took some off with my dryer brush. Here we go. Now this one again is the same colors. I'm going to just do the center in here, darker. And then this does come all the way out to the edge, so we're going to do that. Now this one comes over the top here, but it's underneath this one, so that's where our shadow will go. So we want to be sure and get color in there. And we're just going to softly blend that all the way out, just kind of sweeping it together. Okay, cleaning out my brush, picking up the darker color for the shadow. And it's going to come in here. And just kind of letting that do its thing. I do want to get just a little bit of this color up in here. There we go. Let that do its thing too. Now while that's drying, this is going to be our highlight area. So I'm cleaning out my brush. wiping it off. I'm going to just soften this edge here a little bit. Doesn't get a hard line that way. There we go. So you always want to look back at your other petals and make sure they're doing what you want them to do. Picking up our highlight. Now this one won't have as quite a highlight as that one because it's further away from the sun, or the light that's coming in. Just softening that in. I do want to go just a tad darker in here. Being away from the sun, it is going to be a little bit darker in the shadow areas. Okay. Making sure that softens in, and it is, so that's a good thing. Okay, now we got the first glaze on, which is nice. Now we're going to take and do a different technique with the watercolors. This one is a little darker in here, so we're going to just do a little dark in this area. And this is dry watercolor pencil on the watercolor paper. So this is the second technique that I wanted to show you. Just randomly picking up the colors. And this is going to get you a totally different look. Than the glazing did. Okay, now I'm going to continue, since this is dry here, on, and I'm going to turn my paper so I can get at it a little bit better. Move my watercolor pencils out of the way. And I'm just going to add some of that color right in the center. It is underneath that petal. It's over this petal. And I'm going to take some more of that blue. Now this one does have a little bit of a flip at the edge, so we'll do it this way. Create that shadow over here. And basically just getting some color in there with the pencils. Okay, now what we want to do is take our brush, and I'm going to dry wipe quite a bit of the water out of it. I don't want, first of all, I certainly don't want any drips on the ferrule, because I don't want that to fall into the paint that I've applied dry. So my brush is moist basically at this point. And I'm just going to softly introduce that very gently. Cleaning my brush as I go so I don't, and dry wiping it, making sure it's nice and dry. The more water you have on your brush, the lighter these values will become. Nothing wrong with that. That's, you just need to know that to control it. Now, what I did here is I jumped the highlight so that it did not have any color applied to it. and then I didn't have to remove it. And again, you want your streaks to go the way the petal would grow. So here's our center. We're going to do it this way and this way. So there's another look that you can get. Let's do this other petal. I'm going to move my paper again just so I can get at it a little bit easier. Making sure you can see me, and I'm going to move this up just so I know you can. So I've got the dry wipened brush. It's just moist. Now if I were doing this painting for real, I would not intermix the style. If I was going to do it, I'd do it either all glazed or all pencil. I would not intermix them like this. It just doesn't create a cohesive look. Okay. Now, pretty sure it's still pretty moist. So we're going to move on to this next petal. This one we're going to do a little differently in the sense that we're going to apply a lot of the pencil in. And this is the dark shadow side here because it's underneath that petal. So we're going to apply that first. So as a watercolor artist, you want to play around with different ideas like this and see what's going to work the best for you and your painting. And if this third way that I'm showing you right now is the best, then go for it. I'm going to leave the highlight here. I'm not going to put any color in there. But I'm going to cover quite a bit of the rest of this petal. Again, as I'm putting in my pencil, I'm following, there's the center, and I'm following the way that that petal would grow. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of pencil in there, and we're going to take just a damp brush, no drips, hardly any water, and we're going to apply that. Cleaning your brush as you go. Get a completely different look again. So that's 3 different looks. And here we're actually blending these pinks and blues together on this petal. We pretty much left them separate on the other petals. Now these other 2 that we started with should be just about dry. So we got, now for this hydrangea, I would not do this style because it's pretty heavy and you want these petals to be see-through. So that's important. You want to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to take just my damp pencil that I chose for colors, and I am going to put in some detail. And that's what's kind of nice about the watercolors. You can deepen as you need. Put your detail right on top and either leave it or soften it in. Sometimes if you don't care for it, you can always soften it in. So I'm looking for the right color here, and I found it. Adding in some shadow over here. Even add a little bit of depth in here too. Okay. And we're going to turn this around so we can get at the other petal that we glazed. And we're going to do some detail on it. And you can build this up and build this up as much as you need to or want to. Now you don't want to go over the highlight that you pulled out. You want to leave that alone. But you do have some shadows in here that you want to create. So play around with your pencils and see what works the best for you. Try different flowers, try different still lifes, whatever you're working on at the time, and see if it would actually work well for you. So my two favorite are the first ones we did. Again, I have a nice dry brush here. I'm just going to soften this in. Just get a nice soft look to it. Same thing over here. And then once it dries again, if you need more veins, you can go ahead and add more or whatever you want to do. So there you go. You got a couple different styles of watercolor pencils that you can try and practice with, and hopefully this has helped. If it has, let me know that you'd like to see some more of these styles of quick techniques, and be sure and check me out on Patreon, Designs of Value, and you can follow me step by step with all my classes there. Thank you again. Have a great day.